guys, hope you're having a great day today. It is Thursday. Happy Thursday morning to you. I hope that your day is going well. My day is going fantastically. A good start this morning. Woke up feeling great. Got a nice walk in. Got to sit outside for a little bit. Had my cup of coffee, and I'm like, I'm ready for my day today. So I hope that your day is starting out good. Hopefully, if it's not, and if it's not, then you know what? Take a breather. Like if you're having a bad start to your day, stop what you're doing. If you can step outside, if it's not too freezing, step outside. Just breathe in some fresh air. Get yourself a glass of water. Drink some water. Breathe in fresh air. Take a few minutes to kind of, okay, go back in, recoup, ready to start your day. Does a whole lot of wonders. I know for myself, I'm enjoying walking in the morning. That's just been good for me to get out. Quiet, no phone, no music, nobody talking to me. Silence, just the birds and squirrels that you see, and just having that quiet and walking and talking, having conversations with the Lord, and just regrouping for my day. It's done a whole lot. It's amazing when you just kind of unwind from your phone, unwind from people's words, people's comments, and like other people's negativity, and just focus on your day. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing, amazing process. So enjoyed my wake up. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to start my day today. So today's video is going to be all about things you can do in an emergency. And I know it's maybe something you don't really think about, but I'm going to give you some tips that over the years that I've done that just kind of prepare for things, and things I do in my own home, and just to kind of be ready for anything that life may throw at you. And this all comes from my book, my Large Family Mothering book. So I have that. You don't even buy the book, because you know what? We're going through it this year. I'm taking a chapter. I'm giving you a free PDF download, link below. You can just have it. And then at the end of the year, you'll have the whole, or however long it takes to go through the book. I don't know how many chapters are in there, but there's a lot where I just write on different topics that I have. Like I did a blog back in the day, and then I put a lot of my blog into the book to be able to put it all together, because I'm like, this is the tips all in one place. So you can go read them on my blog, but I'm going to share them on here with you. So it's just little things that I have done that I think, sometimes I think the simple things you like forget about, you know what I mean, to share. Because sometimes you have to remember where I'm at in life is not where you may be at in life. It's like everybody is at different seasons and different places in their life. And so there might be something I share that you don't even think about, because I know I'll watch videos on saving money and stretching food, and I'm like, oh, I never thought about that, or oh, that's a really good idea. So it's just little things that just kind of spark that little bit of, yeah, I can do that to save some money. So that's what I'm hoping to do for you today. So you ready for a great day? All right, let's go. Okay, loss of power happens to everybody, right? Our power, Michigan, it would go out all the time. We moved to the mountains. We lost power quite frequently. Not for like I say, not for a long time. There were times that we did lose it for an extended period of time, because during storms, things like that, it happens because we lived in the middle of nowhere. I call it beautiful place, middle of nowhere, but like that was the outskirts of the town. And so we were like the last ones before they fixed anything. So trees would fall over because there's beautiful trees everywhere, and the power would go out. So what do you do when your power goes out? Okay, first things first, go outside into your garage, or wherever. I'm sorry, I say go in your garage. Mine's in the garage now, but wherever it is in your home, find your circuit breaker box. I'm going to put a picture right here because mine is over here, and there's a bunch of bikes in front of it. It's hard to get into. So circuit breaker, learn your circuit breaker. Figure out, and this is something simple. You might already know this, but you may not be aware. When I was a young bride, I had no idea. Go to your circuit breaker right here and make sure that all your breakers are on. You either flip them over, don't be afraid to touch it, you'll be fine. Make sure those, if they popped, it could just be off. So you might have to just flip them back on. Sometimes, I know in different houses I've had, certain breakers have been a little more sensitive than others, and so just popping them off and turning back on is turned back on. So check that first to make sure that is not the cause of your power being off. If it's off, sometimes if you just wait, like I know here in Florida it goes off a lot, but it always comes back on. It comes back on. It's only been like a rare time that it's more than that, you know, like more than an hour or two that the power is out. So go to your circuit breaker and check that. So when your power goes out, this thing right here is always the stress of like, is it gonna last? Is it not? So we have had a freezer full of food for a long time, ever since Michigan. And we have a generator here, but we did not in Michigan. We did not in the mountains, and power does go out. So what do? Does all of your food go to waste? It could, but we have not had that happen completely where I've had to throw everything away. So what are some tips that you can do for your freezer? So I've learned with a freezer, especially one of these big freezers, and depending where you live, because if this was, I have not had to go for more than, well, I would not even have to go here because we have a generator, but in North Carolina, the power went out. If you keep your freezer completely shut, if you do 48 hours, go read the websites, they'll tell you shorter, but if you do not open your freezer for 2 days, your freezer will stay pretty frozen. It will. And so if it's properly kind of filled, if this is kind of, like my freezer right now is kind of empty because we're going through and just eating everything up first before I go. I'm going to try to eat most of it up before we go shopping. So mine's pretty bare right now, but a good way to make sure that it does stay. So if you knew, like if I knew a hurricane was going to come or something like that, and I didn't, let's pretend I don't have my generator, then I would make sure to kind of stack all of this food. Like I would like more put it in the middle, especially the meats, that kind of thing through here. Your veggies and that, those are okay. Those are just like $1 a bag, no big deal, or $1.50 a bag, right? However much they are now. Those I kind of put on the outskirts of things, but things that you really wanted to stay frozen, like your meats and that, I kind of stick them in the middle and really pack them in. And then I would get big tubs, or I think I did bags during the last hurricane. I did bags of ice. And so those, sometimes I put them in there, or water, that's what it was. It wasn't ice, water. Put it in there, but they kind of like droop down below, between the shelves here. And then when you went to take the bags out, to get the ice out, they cut holes in the bag. So I was like, okay, that was a waste. So just use containers, get containers. I would just get big plastic containers or big plastic bowls, and I would fill them up with water and put them in here to keep this frozen salad. That helps. I've gotten many tips over the years with people. They say if you take like a cup and put like a penny or something on top of it, or if you don't have a penny, like I know in the garage here, I grabbed a washer. And then that way, if you keep it shut, let's say you have to go 3 days in your freezer. Okay, can you go 3 days? Yes, you can. I have before in the mountains. So you can be able to check, because you'll see, but you have to not open your freezer. Don't open it to check anything. That's the key, is don't open it at all. So you have to keep it completely shut, wait till your power comes back on, and then let it get cold again, and then check your freezer. Don't open the door. But that little jar, if you put a jar in here with like a washer or a penny, you'll see if it thawed. Obviously the money's going to go down and it's going to refreeze. You're going to see it down. Then you're going to know, okay, my stuff has gotten out. But we've only, I think in the mountains one time we had stuff like on the door, and it was ice cream in that, and I had thrown that away. That kind of got softer. So anything here, I would move everything in here. That would be my tips to saving your freezer. This is out in the garage here. In Florida, if we had no power for days on end and didn't have a generator, I would probably be a little bit more concerned like that would happen, and it would be like, oh, that's a little bit more of a big deal here, because the heat is much more intense here than it was in the mountains. I'm sure someone can find a video and quote me wrong, but I feel like I know we lost power when there's ice storms and that. So it was in the winter. That was a whole lot easier to keeping things cool, because that's no big deal. In the summer we did, I feel like there was only one time we didn't have it for a little bit of time, and then we had coolers, so I was able to take everything out and kind of store it in coolers, and I really didn't have that much in there. But that's just a tip. Stuff your freezer full. That helps a whole lot. Your house one, I would, the refrigerator in your house is not going to stay as cold as a big giant freezer here, so I would take my stuff from my house and put it in here if I didn't have a generator, to keep it frozen solid, and stick everything in here that you want to stay good and frozen. Now a refrigerator, if you have a power outage, keep that refrigerator shut. Again, we have a couple of refrigerators, and so I'm talking about my experience in the mountains, because here I have different, because we don't have to worry. We do have to worry about power being out, but we have a generator, so I'm not that concerned. So refrigerators, what I would do in the mountains, I would make sure to kind of move everything to one refrigerator, and then I would move a few things that we would use when the power was out immediately to another refrigerator, and that would be stuff that we would use up, like the breads, and if it was lunch meat, stuff like that, because any kind of drinks or anything, because I knew that we would open that refrigerator door a million times, and as soon as you open that door, that heat just rolls inside. So if you're gonna have to, your refrigerator, that's gonna be, it's like every time you open the door, it's just bringing in heat. So I always tell my kids that when the power went, I'm like, don't touch the freezer, don't touch the refrigerator. Because sometimes, obviously, you can't prepare. You can't prepare, there's gonna be you can prepare for a hurricane or a storm, you know, that's coming, but sometimes the power just goes out and you're like, oh, so my first thing is always, don't touch the refrigerator. Don't open the refrigerator, don't even do it, because you wanna preserve everything. We would do that all the time in the mountains because we lost power often there. And so that is something to do. So just kind of be aware. Think, this is the twofold where you're like, ooh, I gotta open my freezer and get out my ice packs, because sometimes you have them in your freezer. So grab those, put those in your coolers, and put your refrigerated stuff in your coolers and use it up that way. So we have lost stuff in the refrigerator, but it was not a big deal because it was just a few things here and there. So just some tips you can do, but the refrigerator inside is gonna be a whole lot different. Your ice is gonna start melting, and it's gonna get water everywhere, down your freezer, and so just be a little more cautious. But again, try to pack it in and keep it shut is going to be your key to not losing any food. Okay, something else that could happen in your home is a grease fire. I have only had this happen one time, if I'm remembering correctly, one time in my life, and I think it was in Michigan. I don't really think it happened in the mountains. Again, someone could find where I talked about it, but I think it was just in Michigan. So the grease fire, your stove will catch on fire. What do you do? So it's like, oh, the panic of like, there's a fire. So sometimes you immediately want to grab that water and throw it on. Don't do that. That will make it 10 times worse. So one thing you can grab is baking soda. I was just making sure that's my baking soda. Whenever you have a grease fire, don't do water. It's like that grease and water, you know, like when you're deep frying, don't put water in there. Do baking soda and pour that over top of your fire to put out. You can also take a towel and put it out as well if you have that too, but if you didn't want to risk, you know, burning your towel or burning your hand, take yourself some baking soda and pour that in. So having that, usually that's in my cupboard here right next to my stove so I can use it. We also have a fire extinguisher. They say keep it right by your things. I don't. I should. Mine's in my pantry over there. I just know where it's at for an emergency. Okay, how about an electrical appliance right here? What if your electrical appliance catches on fire? Pull your cord from the wall if you can. If there's a fire there, don't touch it, and smother your fire with a blanket or a towel. Get like a, think of, your kitchen towels are gonna be a lot smaller, so think of like a bath towel. It's gonna be a little bigger to be able to smother the fire with. Hopefully that never happens to you in your home. I don't think I've ever had, no, I think I would remember that. I've never had a fire. Never had an appliance. We had a child one time cooking ramen, I think way back in the day, and they had the stove on, and then they let the water boil completely out of the pan, and I think the pan had caught on fire. But that was the only like fire kind of thing we've ever had in the house. I'm thinking, I don't think we've ever had. I've had a burner one time where my towel would touch it and the flame would catch on fire, but never an appliance. But for appliances, unplug real quick, cover with a towel. That'll be a safety tip. Okay, another place where you can have an emergency is in the toilet. Did you ever have an overflowing toilet? I have. If you have kids, then you've probably had an overflowing toilet. So I'm a more older mom now, but as a young mom, I'm like, what do you do? The water's pouring out of the toilet. So I feel like it's one of those things that I know I've told my kids, because I remember going, oh my goodness, how do you get the water from not pouring out? Well, there is a knob behind your toilet. There should be a knob behind your toilet. You can shut it off right there, the shut off part of it. I know these toilets, you can probably see back there, it's on the wall. We have some in our newer toilets in the other bathrooms, and the shut off valve is back inside of the toilet. It's one of those weird things where I'm like, where is the water shut off? And so I've had to reacquaint myself. So if you have a newer modern toilet, I guess, besides the old school ones, go investigate, look behind it so you know where your shut off is. That's one of those things that I share with my kids there. Same thing with your sinks, know where your shut off valves are so that you know how to shut off. Same thing for your refrigerator, your water supply. I know for myself, mine is in my cupboard, my pasta cupboard, and I'm like, oh, there it is to shut off the water. So just be aware where that is. Okay, then you got a clogged toilet. I know, gross and nasty. Be aware that your toilet's overflowing, and as soon as you start using the clogger, it's gonna want to go over more. So you can either get a bucket, scoop out some, you can do that, or just go really slow. Put your plunger on it, push down very slow a few times to get that clog out, and then hopefully it will release through. And now a lot of people may go and get like, the drain cleaner and stuff like, or the drain, like Drano, liquid Drano. Now we have done that over the years, and I feel like, and I don't know, and I don't want to be the conflicting person, but I feel like it never worked. And then we'd have a plumber come out and he'd say, no, that stuff's just garbage, it eats your pipes. So we've always just used a plunger. And then we also got a snake. We had to have that in one of our houses one time because we had septics, things in the city. We don't really have too many clogs here, or I haven't noticed in the last couple of years. I've never really lived in the city, so where I've had to think about it. But we've always had septic outside, so we've had to use what is it, like the drain, the wire? I think it's a wire snake, and it wasn't $10 at Harbor Freight, and you put it down in your toilet and you can twist it and it goes through and it cuts out your anything stuck in your pipe. So that has been helpful. So we've always used that. I know in our sinks when they get clogged, it's usually because of hair. So I have those hair tools that were like $1 or $2. They're not very much. Let me show you that one. These tools right here, these have been a lifesaver. I did not discover these until quite late in life. You would use, remember the wire hangers? Wire hangers to go down the drain, try to get the hair out. I'd plunge like crazy in the sink to get things out, but then I discovered these. So these work really well. Our current house, the tubs all have like that nice trap, so they catch the hair in it, but and I know in our mountain house, it did not. We just had a regular drain. So we use this all the time. As soon as the drains got slow, get these and pull up. It was like a monthly occurrence in our mountain house. Here, I really don't have to do it at all. I'm just thinking I did it once in my sink here. It was more when we moved in, but I really haven't had to do it in any of the things. So these are like $2, $3, maybe they're more now. They were $2, $3 when I bought them before. So those work really well for clogs. We keep those on hand for any kind of clog that you would have from hair, because you got a lot of girls and lots of hair. Okay, into the bathroom here. So what about a burst pipe? Ever have that happen? I don't think, we had a pipe outside our overflow. One of the valves broke, we had to worry about that. But if you ever have a bursted pipe anywhere in your home, I remember growing up we had that happen one time. Rare, but it does. Just be aware of where to shut the water off. So again, know where your main water shutoff is. In the mountains, I knew ours was downstairs. I knew where to shut it off, and that supplied it for the whole house. Here, it's a little bit different. They have it outside, and then we also have a valve by the road that we controls everything as well. So we've only had a little bit of a leak there, but it was no big deal to fix. But also know where they are in your house. So I know in my under the bathroom sinks, they have these ones as well. So just in case you need to worry about something exploding, go, oh, where can that be? Because if you pay for water, if you live in the city, you're gonna pay for your water. So all of that water is gonna be costly to you. If you have country and you have a well, I know we did. So I know when we had a leak or a thing, it wasn't as big of a deal because we were paying for electricity for the well to pump it up, and then there'd be more water into your septic. But still be aware of where all of the water is, because if you ever have an emergency, you gotta know where to shut it off. Okay, another tip that I learned growing up in Michigan was frozen water pipes. I never, if you live in the north, then you know, because frozen water pipes will occur. When we moved to the mountains, I think we only had to do it one time. And I believe the last year, was it last year? Maybe last year was really cold, might have been last year, the year before. And so they had experienced very, very cold weather. And so they had to worry about pipes freezing. That is a real thing, especially if you have any pipes. Like in our mountain house, we'd have a pipe, a couple of things outside of the house. And I thought, that's really weird they do that, but that was the way they do things. So Florida, we don't have to worry about it too much, but I do remember, I think this year in different parts of Florida, like the northern part, had a lot of really cold weather. And so they recommended your pipes. Now in Michigan, you would wrap your pipes. So like under your sink, this is an inside wall, so doesn't really happen, but your outside walls to your house, like in my old house in the mountains, my kitchen sink was on the outside wall. So that wall would be much more exposed to cold than say an inside wall. So the pipes, they would make sure they wrap their pipes in some kind of foamy stuff. We do that for our pipes here for warmth. So we keep them insulated to try to keep off them from getting too hot. But for cold, you can keep them wrapped. But I know just a little trick you can do is just turn on your sink. Just a little bit, just dripping like that. Not even that much, like right there. If you have a continuous flow of water, then your pipes can't freeze. That's the key. So I know in the mountains, we had to do that for our sinks on the outside of the house, in our kitchen, and one of our bathrooms, because that was on the outside, and we just let it drip real slow like that. That's not much water getting wasted. You can save it in a bucket if you want to and use it for something else, but we would do this all the time in Michigan, all the time. Crack your things, because frozen pipes cost thousands and thousands of dollars to repair. So this was a good way to prevent that from happening. All right, you know where else you can have some issues is with your sink and your kitchen sink. So sink clogs. Sometimes you're like, why? I haven't had a whole lot of issues in many, many years in my sinks. I didn't have a garbage disposal here. I didn't have one in the mountains. In Michigan, we had a garbage disposal. And I do remember thinking, because I grew up with one and we used it for everything, you know, and then I remember talking to a guy that did the septics, and he was saying those are so bad for your septic system. And I'm like, what, really? And so my girlfriend, she was building a house, and she didn't have one put in. I'm like, don't you want to have one put in? And she's like, oh, no, my husband said that would not be a good idea to have in the house. And I'm like, okay. But then I remember being young, this is way back in my beginning years of homemaking, and I remember taking and put orange peels and lemon peels, this is way before the internet, in your garbage disposal to make it smell fresh and clean. So I was like, surely I can do that. So put those in my my garbage disposal, and ground it up, and I'm like, wow, that smells refreshing. Well, then it got clogged in our pipes, and so we had an older home, definitely got clogged in the pipes, and so that was a disaster. So that happened one time. Greg had to take the whole thing apart and start snaking through the pipes and pulled out a bunch of orange pieces. I think I remember my mother-in-law telling me about her putting pasta noodles down the drain and how that had clogged up the system really bad. You think that like putting that in there, chop it up, it'll be okay. It's not at all. So not having one, I don't feel like I need one, because to me, yes, you have to pull the food by hand. Every time I do my dishes, every time I clean my sink out, there's always food in here, or sometimes it's in this little catcher here, but for the most part, sometimes it gets down the bottom, you have to scoop it out. But I believe it saved us from a lot of food being caught up and stuck in the garbage disposal. So I know ours in the mountains, it was an older, or not mountains, Michigan house, it would get stuck. So one way to unstick it is to take a broom handle in it, and you can turn it either counterclockwise or clockwise to free it up if something got stuck in there. There's a reset button on the bottom. Those are the only tips I can give you, because it's the only thing I remember from the garbage disposal. So, but we don't have one now. But let's say your sink starts clogging. If that happens, okay, be aware that if you put any kind of grease down there, like cooking grease, bacon grease, any of that kind of stuff, that hardens when it gets cold, right? So you have to be aware. I always thought if you put any, like if I put any down there, like I'm not putting my cooking oil down there, I'm not doing that. But if there was a little bit, I'd always make sure the water is running for an extended period of time, especially hot water, to make sure that drains out. So if you have a huge sink, get your plunger out, try plunging it. Sometimes that helps getting it out there. If you might have to get the snake out for that, that's another way to get it out too. We've also, like I said, this all happened back in Michigan when we had an old house with old pipes that just, the roots from the trees would grow through the pipes and they would just get stuck. So it happened. I have not had to experience this in a long time, but another thing we did was get a big pot of boiling water and pour it in there real quick. Sometimes that helps flush things out. We've done the liquid Drano in there, but it just sat. And then if you go to plunge it, it splatters on you. So then you've got all these chemicals on you. So we didn't like using that. So another thing, we found that if we just kind of plunged it really hard and waited, and sometimes it took a couple days, but the water did flow out eventually. So be aware of that. Like, instead of worrying about calling the plumber right away, unless you have to. I understand I had to do my dishes in the bathroom sink and the bathroom tub, and it worked. And then we just waited for a couple days, and then the water did drain out. So sometimes a little bit of patience does pay off. Okay, let's talk about something that you probably don't talk about much, but you've seen little videos on creative ways that people have hid valuables, hiding your valuables in your home. Okay, I don't know what you feel about using the banking system and holding and keeping your money in the banks, if that's wise or not. But if you don't feel that way and you feel like you should keep it at home, where can you hide those things? What if you have expensive jewelry? What if you have firearms? What if you have things that you want to hide in your home? People want to go for the old, like, standby, like stick it in a mattress. The first place people look, right? Or like in a drawer, but people look in those places. So where can you creatively hide things that are valuable in your home? I grew up with a lot of police officers in my life, and so, you know, you think of those things, oh yeah, hide it under your mattress, and they're like, no, those are not the places to hide things. We know about burglars. We know where they first look. And so getting a lot of tips and a lot of advice over the years of where to put things creatively and where to hide them. And so now they have like all these great tools. Like I remember back in the day, like my mom, she is the queen of getting magazines. She would get those magazines that had the most creative, different things in it. Like, you can probably get them in stores now, but like the rock where you hide your key in it that you could put outside your door. Those kind of, the little magnet that you could put in your car, on your car, to hide a key. And then she would have like the canned soup. Like, remember, it looked like a Campbell's canned soup, and then it was, you could open it though and put your money and valuables inside of it and put it on the pantry shelf, and no one would know any different. So I remember seeing those. I know they're everywhere now. So I know it's like there's an abundance of information. There was a while where they were showing different hacks on YouTube where they would cut out like a stack of paper plates, cut out the center, and you could hide things in there and put the plates back on top and hide things inside there. There's a whole lot of ways to hide money creatively that you can do to, not leave it in the areas that are most likely where people are going to look. Now, these are just some that I have heard about over the years to do, and I thought these are really good ideas. So store your cash or valuables in an area of like your hobby. So let's say you do knitting or something, put it in your knitting basket, place that is just most likely not going to get looked at. And then another creative way is by wrapping money in foil and sticking it in the freezer. Like you would never think. You're gonna think it's food stuck in your freezer, and there your money and your cold hard cash is in that freezer. Some people that have a basement, they might think stick it in the basement because no one's gonna go down the basement. Or if you had an attic, no one's gonna go up in your attic. And I always think if you're gonna hide things in your home, you gotta be able to have quick access to it, because if you have to leave your home in case of a fire or an emergency, you wanna be able to get it really quickly. I was thinking when we lived in the mountains, I thought this was a great idea for hiding things, because fire can happen, things can happen in your home. I told Greg, I said, this is a genius idea. I would get a PVC pipe, and hope maybe someone's got this invention. I came up with this, thought this was great. PVC pipe, and get the end caps, and then stick your money inside there and go bury it outside. Like, who would go dig up your yard? Nobody. So like that would be a great place to hide money, because it'd be out in your yard. Sometimes when you think in your house, you're like, okay, what if a fire happened? I know for us, we had hurricanes, and we thought, is something gonna happen to the house? It's gonna be all flooded. What's gonna happen? We had no idea. And so, you know, you want to take your money with you because you want to be able to have it. And so, but that idea came to mind. I remember in the mountains thinking the PVC pipe with end caps, that would be a great way to hide things. You have to make sure it's sealed really well, obviously, so no water gets in there. But that would be a good way to hide your stuff outside. I've even heard way back in the day, someone said, put it in a maxi pad or a diaper, because who is going to look at a maxi pad or a diaper? Nobody. So just a way to lay your money out, or roll it up, put it away. So I don't know if you have a bunch of burglars, if they're searching through maxi pads or not, but I don't think they are. I'm going to give you a bunch of freebies in this video, as always. So link below, I'm going to have like 101 ways to hide your money, hide your valuables in your home. Just some fun things that you maybe don't even think about. I know they have furniture that has different areas. There's just a whole lot of creative ways you can do it besides putting it like in a safe, because you can stick it in a safe, that's good, but like they can take the whole safe. Or like that's the first thing they're going to go to. So think of a creative way to hide your money, and hide it in multiple places around your house, not all in one area. That's a nice little tip. Okay, what about some personal safety tips? So different things over the years that I have done. Just again, these might be things that you already think about, or maybe you don't think about, but I know that when we lived in the mountains, a little more remote areas than other places, and so we had to be more aware of, you know, being safe. You want to be safe always. It's not that we are fearful of things, but we had to be, you always want to be safe. And I always remember my husband would always say strength in numbers. And I think that's so true. Whenever you're going out, especially being a lady, a woman in today's society, even yesterday's society, and then even years past society, you want to be safe. So having a group is always a lot more safer than going alone. And so having the strength in numbers is always a much better plan than doing it alone. So always travel with some if you can. Take kids with you if you can. If not, take some friends with you if you can go places. If not, be aware of your surroundings. I know when you go to the grocery store, I go shopping. I do that a lot by myself. And so immediately when I'm walking out of the store, I check my surroundings and I look around. This is not to be fearful. This is just to be aware and know what's going on. You have your keys in your hand so that you can unlock your car when you get to it. And mine automatically unlocks when I walk to it. So I know for myself, I will be aware of like going around, looking around where I'm at, people following me if there's anybody by me. And so then when I get to my car, get in your car and lock your doors right away. Make sure you do a double lock to make sure it's locked. I know also there's a setting in my car where it has, when you get close to it, it unlocks the doors, but it just unlocks the driver door versus all the doors. And so that's another tip to be aware of, especially when you go into places to do that. I like to park near I try to. It doesn't always happen here in Florida because there's so many people, but like a cart corral so that I can just put my cart right there. Avoid parking like next to big giant vehicles like vans. I had a 15 passenger van. I know these things, but just to avoid so it's not as, you're not as seen in your vehicle. So those are just some tips. And then when you get out of your car, be aware, keep your keys with you in your hand, or if you're feeling unsafe, and especially if you're out walking or you're somewhere, there's a lot of apps. They have a lot of apps. Even, I want to even think, is it Life 360 has that? Or maybe it's just the phone. I don't use it, but I know there was an app that if you're going to take a walk, you can just let it know, your phone know, I'm taking a walk, so that it would be aware to, like, you had to push a button like in so many minutes or something like that to make sure you're safe. And if not, it would call your contact person. I don't know if that's on my phone or if that's in the app. So hopefully look into that. But that's like another great way, because I'm like, that's a genius thing, because if you're out by yourself, it's like, okay, I'm going to be out. We have Life 360 in all our phones and devices, so we kind of know where everybody's at all the time for safety. But that's another way to be aware of where they're at. Always back in the day before they had that, I remember just telling my kids, just leave your location on so that we can know at least something happens, if something did happen, then we would at least know your last known location to be able to track you. So those are good little tips for as far as like safety being out. I know another tip that we do is we take pepper spray. That's something you can do easily, and this might be a little easier for those, some people carry guns, some people, do that. You feel comfortable doing that, and that's personal opinion, and if you want to do that, that's a great thing to do too. Look into your state's laws and what you can have. So carrying a gun, whatever, or knife, whatever kind of personal protection you want to have, those are all going to be up to you yourself personally, but an easy way to do it is pepper spray. I know that's not going to ward off and save you from a bunch of things, but it will give you a little bit of time for something. I watch these videos where they do the personal protection safety courses, and they're showing these women how to, fight off men and things like that. And the guys will come on and say, if there's a so many pound guy coming after you, there's no way that your little body is going to be able to hold them off. And so I think of that. I think, okay, I understand it's not going to be in all scenarios at all. So, but just if you could take some steps. So pepper spray, this is a great thing to do. Like we put this on the dog leash when we go for a walk in my neighborhood. It's in a nice, safe neighborhood, but just to be aware. And mine could be because an animal could run up on me, a alligator could come out, a dog could come up on me. That's not safe. And so having this, it has a little, these are nice because they have like the noise. Again, we have enough neighbors that if something happened, and there's cameras everywhere, so I wouldn't worry about not being seen and things like that. But anywhere, parks, things like that, it has the noise. It lets off like an emergency noise. And then the pepper spray, a little bit nicer because this one flips up and then you can spray it. I have had them, I think, at like AutoZone and stuff sells them, and it's just more like the bottle spraying. So this I like because it does have the protective cover on it, and this is nice. This is nice to have to do it. We've had the kids, I think we got these when we moved here, and so we had the kids, we took one of them, just let the kids all spray it so they can see what it's like to spray it, and then you can open it up and replace the bottle of pepper spray inside of there. So that's something that we keep when we go out, because you never know what is going to be lurking anywhere. This is a good thing to have when you're out on your persons. Keep it in your purse, keep one in your car. They have tasers. They have a lot of things you can do. Even if you couldn't carry a gun or carry a knife, you can have a taser. But again, check all your state's legal things that you can do. But there's all things you can do that will inflict some harm, save you a little bit of time to keep you safe. Another thing, when we lived in the mountains, it was kind of remote in the middle of nowhere. So when we go to sleep at night, we would keep our keys on our nightstand. And that was just for the fact of you could push the button on your key and it would turn your car alarm on. That's just something else. You could do that, anywhere you live. So if you have your keys, if it was within range of your car, and you could hold the alarm button and that could go off. If you have a security system, even better. So I know that we have that in our house here. We had one in the mountains. It wasn't, and then the mountains a little bit more further away from people, but we still had, I know we had one time one kid put the wrong code in the home base, and we had the police just pull up behind, and we had friends get pulled up, and then the police officers show up behind them, and they're walking up real slow, and they knew our friends, so they were talking, and they're like, yeah, hey, we're just coming to, because we were all coming out happy, no big deal. I think we were getting home from church, and they were like, yeah, just coming to see if you had an emergency here. And I was like, oh, no, the alarm didn't go off, and I realized that a child used the emergency code instead of the regular code. You can do a different PIN number, and that is a silent emergency, so that it'll call the cops, but it'll shut the alarm off as well. So there's a lot of little home systems that you can do. You can get, we had Simply Safe in the mountains. That's one that you can do. It's a little less. You can do smaller tier programs. Here we have bigger ones just because we live in the city, and it's good. It goes through all the windows, which is nice. It's the doors. It alerts us. We have it in the fire alarms. We have it in anything. So we have had, it works really well because we've had the popcorn machine right here, and it lets some heat up, and then we realize, oh, that's right where the alarm was, because when you move in, they're like, where do you want to put them? I'm like, I don't know. So they stuck them in the corners where I would think that it's like hallways. It's right by where you would have, if you had a popcorn machine or some kind of a toaster oven or something, all that heat's going to go there. I'm like, that's probably not a good place for that, but they did, no big deal. So, and then the fire department showed up a minute and a half later, and I was like, wow. So they are good, which is good. We have a fire department right down the road, but security systems are good if you can afford that, having that for your house, just something to consider for more safety. And I like it because you can let your alarm set, you can leave. It's like, you just know what's going on. You know when somebody opens a window, you know when somebody shuts a window. It's just another precaution you can take. Okay, outdoor safety tips. There's plenty of things that you can do outdoors to make your home safe. Number one is install cameras. We have cameras covering all of our yard and all of our neighbors and anybody in the street, and so do all of our neighbors. It's like you'll get like a notification on our social media. We have a private group for our neighborhood, and they'll post a screenshot of their cameras. They're like, hey, who is this? Or hey, who is this? Or if somebody is coming in the neighborhood, there were people going through and checking vehicles, and so they were able to take a screenshot, and then all the neighbors check their cameras so that you can all be aware. So I think every corner of your home is covered here, which in the city it's a little bit different than in our mountains. We had a couple cameras, and it was more of an alert if people were coming up the driveway, and we had one out because our internet was not very good. So it does not work good for cameras if your internet does not work that well. So here we have them all over. For safety wise, we have them in the front, and because it's just a fact of living in a city. We also have our doorbell, which is nice, so then that way you can see if people come to the door, if they leave packages, it'll even tell you that, or it'll tell you if just a dog is walking by or that. So again, all things you can do. If you can purchase those, that's great, and if not, there's some other things you can do to keep it safe. And that is when you have shrubs around your house. We have a little porch here, but if you have shrubs around your house, keep them cut real low. Don't let a lot of things creep up where people can hide behind them. Keep them cut back real low around your windows, real open, so that nobody can hide easily. Look at who's there. Get yourself a dog. That's another tip, is get yourself a dog. A dog will bark and let you know. Maxine may not kill anybody or attack somebody. Well, she probably would, but she will bark and let me know if anybody's here. That's another positive. Again, you'd have to go out and get those. But if you don't have that, this is another thing you can do, is get a decal. This is from our old people. I just never took it off. Get like a security decal and stick it on your window. Sometimes that is a deterror of people wanting to break in. I know a lot of people in our neighborhood, we have them as well too, is that as soon as you install a security system, they put a stake right in their yard with a sign that says this house is protected 24/7 by such and such a company. So I think majority of my neighbors have that. So just another way to keep your home safe. And if you don't even have a security system, you can buy some of these online and just stick them on there for just a couple bucks. So we also had a motion camera, which was good, and that was about, Harbor Freight sells them for about $15. We use that in the mountains because, again, no internet signal, and got the idea because we had a friend that lived in Pickens, South Carolina, in the middle of nowhere. Their internet was much worse than ours, and he had this little white box he stuck by one of his trees that you didn't even see, but when a car passed, because that was the only way up to your house, it would it'd be a motion detector, and it would go off and it would give you an alert in the house that someone was coming to your home. And I'm like, that is genius. And again, it didn't have camera or any of that stuff, but it did let you know. So we had that in our house. We had two of them on our mountain because we had one at the bottom, and then we got another one that was a little bit closer. Different ones faced different driveways because our driveway was super steep, and then it turned and went up. And so that way, if it was a bear running across the road or a squirrel, we would know if it's a person or a car, it would come up again, because no one was coming straight up the mountain. I said, if anybody was to break into our house, they'd have to walk up a straight mountain steep, and then they would be like so exhausted they wouldn't be able to finish. So just a small motion detector. I want to say they were $10 to $15 Harbor Freight. That was a great thing. So if you can't afford cameras, you can't afford security system, understand all of that, get yourself a $15 motion. You can put it anywhere. You can put it in your house. It's just great because even out here, let's say you wanted to have one for out here, like you could take it and hide it in one of those bushes right there. You could like literally put it on the other side. No one, you're gonna see it because it's white, but you could disguise it a little bit better, or a table or something, and then just have it pointing this way, so if someone came to your door, you would be aware that someone was coming to your house. So that's another tip to do for outdoor safety. Okay, another thing to do is check your smoke detectors up there. So make sure you check your smoke detectors. Most smoke detectors now, I think all the newer ones last for quite some time. I think in our mountains we had to we had them all wired into our home, but we had to replace the battery every year or so. So that's something to check and see. Usually they beep and let you know. But I know ours work because we had the fire department here. So those are good. Like I said, we have it hooked up to our security, so it alerts them that way. But carbon monoxide tester is something else you can have installed as well. We have that in our basement in the mountains for safety, just to let you know if you have anything gas that could happen. So another thing you can do, just check it each year. Other simple tips would be something like installing skid-free mats in your shower. That's a place you can slip and fall. In our house, The floors are, from going to the pool into the house, are very slippery and very sleek. And we have more than once caught ourselves like slipping. So we don't have rugs everywhere, but we do, we make sure we come in the pool, we put a towel down. If the kids are out swimming and they have their friends over, I just lay a big beach towel on the floor longwise down until the bathroom, so that when they come in, they don't slip on the floor. Same thing in your bathroom. So that's just another simple tip that you might not even think about, because that can happen. And if you have to run extension cords, don't put anything under a rug or anything like material, because if they're frayed or something happens, it can start a fire. And make sure you always have a clear fire evacuation plan. That's something that you talk with your kids about and your family. Make sure everybody knows where they have to go. I know for our mountain home, I always told the kids if we have an emergency, we all get down to where we had a trampoline. That was where our meeting place was. And then it was always, if there's somebody in the house, to go to the neighbor's house, which they'd have to trek pretty far, but they could still go. I said, make it down to the road and walk and run if you can. So we always had a plan for what to do for emergencies. So same thing, because again, you might not know where everybody's going to meet, what you're going to do. And so having that is a good plan to do. And then your water heater, something simple, set it to 120 degrees so you don't burn yourself. How many times I know, like when I would go to my parents' house, this is a long time ago, they might have changed this, using their hot water, it was so hot. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you burn yourself on that. So we've always kind of set it to 120. So loud outside, that to prevent any kind of burns. And if you have firearms or something like that, make sure you have a locked cabinet, something built into your home so that you can keep them safe and locked up, and always keep your bullets separate from the gun for safety wise for children. And then make your kids be informed. That's one thing. Living in Florida's a little different here, because I remember and I didn't realize that not everybody lived that way. Like, we lived in the mountains. You would hear people shooting their guns all the time. It was just a normal natural. We had a gun range right on our property. That is just part of mountain living. That's just part of that area. And so everybody would hear that and they'd be commenting like, is that a gunshot? And I'm like, yeah, it's a gunshot. I hear it like every single day, probably 10 times a day when I'm outside. And then I moved to Florida here, city, mind you. Obviously, people can't be shooting up in their backyard or anywhere because it's a little dangerous. And then I would hear, there is a little bit of country kind of bias, and I like out of the blue heard something. I was like, wow. And it just scared you, as what was that? And it's because it's so rare to hear the gunfire. So I understand now, internet, different people, different areas not hearing that, because when you lived out in the country, it was very natural just to hear it all the time. Everybody had a gun. Everybody's shooting everywhere. And not shooting people, obviously, but just shooting, hunting, and just practice shooting, doing all those things. And then you come to a city and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't happen in the city. So all those things, we've had our kids all be aware and had their gun safety classes, things like that. So they know how to use it. We've let them learn to shoot them, things like that, so that they're aware of how it feels, what it's like. And then obviously when they turn of age, they can decide whether or not they want to protect themselves with one or not, whatever their personal opinion is for their home. Okay, lastly is to prepare for a disaster. Now, I got to experience this firsthand living here with Hurricane Milton, being able to prepare for a disaster. And I remember living in Michigan. We kind of lived in the middle of nowhere again. And I remember that was a long time ago. And I still remember it wasn't even, the internet wasn't big, but it was a real push in the news to everybody save for an emergency, have 3 days worth of supply of things and, stored up. And so at one point, I remember one time we lived, I think the power was out for a week, and that was because some transformer in Niagara Falls blew up and it affected the power. We lived in Michigan, which was strange, but I do remember power being out for a week at a time. And just that one time, and I was like, that was probably the longest we've ever had it. But it wasn't all the areas. We had it, but my parents had power, and then across the street didn't. So it just depended on where you lived and how it was hooked up. But being prepared for 3 days emergency is a good thing. And so I know in the mountains, we had to prepare because if we had snow or if we had ice, you would be stuck up on your mountain for days. I think the longest we were stuck on our mountain was maybe 4 or 5 days. Again, I'd have to look back in videos and see. And then, so we had to be prepared of what to do. And then we moved to Florida here, and we had to be prepared for hurricanes. And so that was probably the most we've ever had to really prepare, because people evacuated, there was a lot of things you had to do to prepare. So I have plenty of videos on that, that gets very down to the nitty gritty. And I feel like we did a very good job to cover every scenario possible during the hurricane. We were prepared if we had to leave. We were prepared if we had no power for weeks on end. We were prepared if our house flooded. We were prepared if, every scenario, we went through them in our head, and we just went through everything and had everything planned out. And thankfully, we went through it and didn't have that much damage compared to a lot of places had a lot of damage. So I understand. And it's going to be where you're at and what you're living. If you're living right on the ocean, obviously that's a whole lot of different game story than living out here in a neighborhood that's not going to have a high flood zone. And so, but plenty of things you can do. So I feel like, and I even think in my own house, like right now, I think, okay, I should have always stuff stocked up planned for food, but like I've gone shopping. We did a Sam's Club, but I got mostly like baking stuff, things like that, but I haven't had to do a lot of food meal buying things. I have. You've seen me go shopping, you know what I have, but I haven't done a huge stock up on things like I normally do. And I'm seeing how much food we can create out of what we have. So for myself, we always have something that we can eat where I don't feel like I have to have a whole pantry full of food in my basement, or I don't even have a basement, but a whole pantry full of food anywhere, because there's enough stuff that we can eat off of. Does that make sense? But I know a lot of people do. And I think when we lived in the mountains, I had a little bit more storage because we did live out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a little bit more to get to the store. And so here we have one right down the road and there's a lot more availability. I understand those things can close, but we still would eat good. So always having food. Water is something we always stock up on. Now here, I try to get 6 cases of water, and we had it for the hurricane, and we didn't use all of it, but we used some of it. And so right after the last hurricane, I ordered it. Sam's Club will deliver water the same price as picking it up in the store. So get it delivered. It's much better than having to lift all those. That was a positive. But I know that our refrigerator was out, our water was out for just a little bit. So we started using the water. So we've had a couple cases gone. I'm like, I'm gonna have to replenish those in my closet there because hurricane season's coming right up. So things like having food and water. And then we always make sure, again, we have a generator, so I'm not too concerned, but we have to have gas for the generator. So we made sure to use the gas that we had for last year in vehicles, and then we'll refill our cans up for the next round. We also have plug-in generators that can use cell phones, things like that we can charge. We always have our flashlight charge for emergencies if we need to use that as well. But just little things that we've done. And then during the hurricane, we made sure that we packed that was the first time I've ever had to do I say a bug out bag, but it's not really a bug out bag, but it was kind of like a bug out bag. But we just made sure everybody had a backpack full of, and us in Florida, it was a little bit different. I don't remember everything I put into it, but you can watch if you want to learn some good tips. I've got a bunch of videos here on how we prepared for Hurricane Milton and things that we did, and it was good. It was like we were prepared. If we had to leave our house for days, we'd have clothes, we'd have a bathing suit, we had shoes, we had toothbrushes, we had snacks, we had, all the emergency things. Girls had maxi pads and just medicine, things like that we were prepared for. Always had our documents in a Ziploc bag, and just different things that we were prepared. So I'm going to link below. Again, with these videos, I'm giving you lots of free resources. And so just some different things that you can do for emergency preparedness. And it's going to be different for everybody because everybody is different. For us, I got to think about all my kids, and I got to think about everything we got to do, and a dog as well. And so just being prepared that way, you might just have yourself or just you and your spouse that you have to think about. So a whole lot of things you can do to be prepared. But I feel like the hype in the news media will put a whole lot out there, and that fear, it doesn't need to be that fearful. It doesn't need to be that fearful. There's a few things you can do that doesn't really cost you anything that you can just have on hand to be prepared for any emergencies that come your way. Some other things I remembered is that we also, as the hurricane was approaching and we kind of discussed what we were going to do, we sat the kids down and we talked about all the things that could happen. We let them know, okay, if we say, let's go, that means immediately grab they had all their emergency stuff in a backpack, but then they're on their devices, they're on doing those things. I said, okay, that's gonna be your own thing to grab. So then you would grab that on your own. So we said, go, we gotta get in the car, and then this is what we do. We go in mom's car, we go in dad's car, and we would leave. These were things that we prepared for. And then we also set them, just let them know each day what was going on. And we let them know what we would do if it started flooding. Where would we go? What we would do if something broke in the house. Our house is concrete, so it's not gonna break or blow down, but things we could do, where we would go for shelter if the walls started caving in, because who knows, places that we can go in the house together to be safe. Those were all things that we did to let them know what's going on without invoking fear, without invoking that, but just being prepared is the key. Another thing we do is take an inventory of your home. That is something you should do anyways. I guess it's good to do it once a year. I guess I'll do mine every time we have a hurricane. So I just took my phone, and what I did is I walked around my room. I opened up all the drawers and took video of what we had, went into the bedroom, did our closet, same thing, bathroom. We did the entire home, because when you have to file for, and also outside, I did all our stuff. The girls did the upstairs for me and got videos of there. Went outside and took pictures of the house, the windows. We have footage of the roof, the yard, things like that. So we had documented how our house was before hurricanes, things like that. So that's something good to do as well. And I remember back in the day, someone telling me to do that for your house, making an inventory of everything you have. And I'm like, oh, but now you can have your phone. I think it took me 10 minutes to walk through my whole entire house and yard and document everything we have. So that's another tip you can do. And then, as always, whenever there's an emergency, have in your head some meals that you can make that are easy, something simple to do. We always have ramen, because ramen is simple. Ramen's the comfort food during emergencies, but we also have some other meals planned in my head. Like in my head, I haven't planned of what we can do that you can make real quick, real easy, that doesn't use a lot of pans because you don't want to wash them, but just something quick and easy to make. So based on what you have. So that was something we did during the hurricane, is I had a week's worth of food planned out, what we could have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so that nobody was starving. We had food, it was used up wisely. So having a meal plan is good for an emergency. So think what you can do. We usually always have the ramen. So I always think, okay, ramen, worst case scenario, and so that's something that's a staple right there. So then think of some other things you can make as well. And as always, I'm gonna include those free checklists for you below, so you can kind of look through and see if there's something you can do for your home. So thank you so much for watching today. So whether you live in the mountains, you're facing a hurricane, or simply looking for a way to secure your home, these tips can help keep your valuables safe and also your family protected. I would love to hear your creative ideas or safety tips in the comments below. So leave them if there's something that I haven't talked about that you think is a great idea, because we love ideas. I love hearing ideas of different things that you do, maybe when it's freezing. What are some things you do in your home? What do you do when it's hot? What do you do for hiding things? What do you do for emergency situations? Leave them in the comments below to help someone else out. As always, stay safe and be protected, and I will see you again next Thursday for the same type of video for this. And if not, come back tomorrow. We're gonna do some more stuff tomorrow. So, all right, have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see ya. Bye.